119 Republicans, if you count both chambers of the United States Congress, 178 Republicans in the House voted no against saving American lives. We have to point out the fact that in the United States Senate, 41 Republicans voted no against saving American lives. But even though we have to kind of give them admonishment and chastise them to some point, this is not about saying, we got it, you're just going to deal with it. See, the thing is, this is the United States of America. That means the Republicans matter. Now, your policies, Republicans in Congress, your policies are deficient. And the fact of the matter is, you voted in favor of Americans dying. Now, the media is not going to play it like that, the mainstream media, but that's the reality. Now, this is not about yelling and screaming about you. In fact, I'm going to do the opposite of that. You messed up. You made a mistake. You did a calculated risk. You were wrong in your thinking. You're still wrong. But that can be changed. You see, members of Congress that are Republican and Democrats that voted against, I'm not going to jump on your case necessarily, a little bit. But instead of jumping on your case, I'm going to say this to you. The next time there's a health care law amendment or in addition to this, simply realize that when you vote in favor of it, you're voting in favor of life. When you vote against it, you're voting in favor of your fellow Americans dying. Now, I do have to point out, for the Pittsburghers and for all Americans, we are hearing from the Republican Party that if they take both chambers of Congress, they're going to do everything they can to repeal this law. And I'm sure there are people out here listening to me right now, and when they hear that, you're jumping for joy. You're like, yeah, repeal it, yeah! I don't want my money going toward that. And I can hear some of the words, and I know there are people mad at me for helping with other millions of Americans. We helped the president. We called the Congress. It wasn't just me. It was millions of us. I'm sure you want to slap us upside the head. There have even been death threats to the Democrats. But what you don't realize is this bill is not going to bankrupt us. It's not Armageddon. In fact, if anything, it's going to put money in your pocket. But you know what? Look, we got 6:22 p.m. We don't have time for all this. I'm going to get to the business at hand. Let me throw something down that you just might like. Those who are against it.
Mention something quickly.
Okay, let them mention this, and then we're going to get down to the paperwork here.
When the Republicans voted no for the health care, and also the Democrats, and
including Jason Altmaier, who voted against it.
Right. Well, when they're saying no, what they're saying is they're voting for death to the American people. Those also people, there could be their constituents and could get, and also the people could be affected, would be dying, it could be people that live in their own district.
Of course. But instead of harping on the negative, this is a victory, this is a celebration, this is a positive show. So we're not going to necessarily give you a hard time on your past actions. But let me warn the Republican Party. Yeah, little old me, Pittsburgh, PA resident, Albert Torcaso. Let me just warn you about something. I don't know about anybody else in this room. I don't know about any other Pittsburgher. But I know one thing, Albert Torcaso has no intentions of letting you repeal this law. And in fact, within 10 years, I expect us to have a public option. And I expect every American to be covered, but further, even more than that, I expect every American to look at health care as a right. But why aren't you going to get rid of it, Republicans? And I do need to say one thing. Every Republican voter in the city of Pittsburgh, I'm going to ask you to vote against your own candidates and including people who voted for Jason Altmaier, Democrat, I'm going to ask you to consider voting against him if they will not change their mind. Because here's what they're going to try to repeal. This is what they're going to try to do. Oh, and it will affect you. Within the first year, young adults will be able to stay on their parents' insurance until age 27. That means that if somebody's 25, can't afford health care, they can stay on their parents' insurance. And if they need it and otherwise couldn't get it, that means they can get the care they need and they can live longer. Well, check this out. That's a great thing. Now, this is within the first year. That's 2010 or 2010. Seniors will get a $250 rebate to help fill the donut hole in Medicare prescription drug coverage, which falls between the $2,700 initial limit and when catastrophic care kicks in at $6,154. So if you are in that area, you have Medicare, and you're between the cost of $2,700 and $6,154, in between that, you have to have a lot more money towards your prescription drugs. Well, guess what? You're going to get $250 this year to help a little bit towards those drugs, okay? Those legal prescription drugs. Now, listen to this. Insurers will be barred from imposing exclusions on children with pre-existing conditions. Pools will cover those with pre-existing health conditions until health care coverage exchanges are operational. What does that mean? That means if you have a child within this year, if you have a child that maybe has asthma, pre-existing condition, insurance don't want to cover it. They will have to cover it. That means, say you're Republican, and you can't afford it because you're not wealthy. You can't afford it. Your kid's suffering from asthma. This year, your kid's going to get some care. That's right. It's not going to cost you $1 million, and you're going to get some care. Now check this out. Insurers will not be able to rescind policies to avoid paying medical bills when a person gets sick. So let's say you have great insurance or medium insurance, and you get sick. Well, for many times, many years, insurers would say, well, now you're sick, we're going to drop you. So you had insurance, you put your money out, you did what you did, you were loyal, you're Pittsburgh residents, you're Pittsburgh champions. You said, you know what, I'm going to pay my own. I'm going to play by the rules. You played by the rules. The insurance company saw you got sick, said, you know what, we love your money, but you got sick, so the bloody heck with you. And you know what I mean. So they dropped you. So you did the right thing, they did the wrong thing. Well, this year, that ain't going to happen anymore. So that's a good thing. Now, lifetime limits on benefits and restrictive annual limits will be outlawed. That means that instead of what you've been hearing from the insurance companies about rationalizing Medicare and putting limits on, Obamacare is what they called it, and they tried to scare you thinking, oh, there's going to be limits. What happens if you get sick? Oh, my goodness. In fact, this law is the opposite. It says there will be no limits. The truth is out there, and it's right here. Now, let's see. Well, let's go to 2011 or 2011. This is what the Republicans are promising to repeal. Medicare will provide free annual wellness visits and personalized preventive plans. New plans will be required to cover preventive services with no copays. What does that mean in layman's terms? It means we have a call, and we're going to get to that in a second. What does that mean in layman's terms? It means, say you're 65 years old, you have Medicare. Well, now, starting next year, we're not going to wait until older adults get sick. We're going to start giving them free annual